What's going on, everyone? So I'm not in the same space, so I can't show my face right now. But we're gonna go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. We're gonna take a look at the overall markets because things are starting to look very, very interesting, especially on Bitcoin. And we know that Bitcoin has a strong correlation to the overall markets, and we know that Bitcoin trades 24 hours a day, and how it shows strength or weakness is a good defining factor of what could happen in the overall stock market, and it's been playing out very, very well recently. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. We're going to take a look at the SPY, the NASDAQ, the IWM, the 30-year bond, which hasn't really been correlating very well, and the large tech stocks. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with the video. All right, so number one, last week, clearly this is a very, very news-driven market at the moment. It doesn't make sense to swing overnight until we see the tensions between Russia and Ukraine subside. All right, because when we technically had really, really good bullish setups, any sort of negative news overnight or after hours caused the market to really just turn red. So we can see on Friday, clearly, we closed below 434.74. And then we even crept below 433.34 intraday. So now what are the next steps? So obviously now, like, it's very, very simple. Like, it's not complicated. If we break down below 433.34, the next major level of support is going to be 430. Then if 430 breaks, that's going to be very, very interesting, because then we start to really, really play around with this lower Bollinger Band. And then we get to really see if we can come back and retest into the low 420s. And currently, from a technical standpoint, with the indicators, the RSI, you can see here on Thursday, the RSI, the number here, was 40.41. And then on Friday, it's 38.73. So what we're seeing is the RSI barely falling down, yet we clearly had two huge red days. That is a very bearish signal. It means that there's still more potential room to the downside. All right. And we can see that downward momentum coming out of the MACD. All right. So another thing here with the MACD is we're still not. So essentially, the MACD, the blue line, you can see it's up here. All right. I hope that's visible to you guys. You can see that it's right up here. Right. But then the support level for the MACD is down here. Now, when you correlate that, the SPY was trading up here. It was trading about 12 points higher, yet the MACD was lower. Okay? So the fact that we are trading lower, yet the MACD has still not fallen below this level of support, is showing that there's still tons more room to the downside. All right? So just be careful on that. But yeah, essentially what we need to see for the bullish case then is if we need to see a close above 435. And then we need to see a close above 437. And then ideally what we want to see is a close back above 443.38. If we can get closes above these major levels, then the best bullish case scenario, the only way I think this would happen is if Ukraine and Russia come to some sort of a peace agreement. Because right now, the Fed came out with very bullish news. They were very, very dovish. The overall market seemed to be doing very, very well. But then literally, it was literally all because of Russia and Ukraine that this market started to fall. So to become very, very bullish once more, we need to reclaim this trend line. Until then, it's all just going to be dependent on news, etc. So there's that. There's really that for the SPY. I see way more downside potential based off of the RSI and the MACD. And it would be nice to see us overextend to the downside. It would be really nice to see us crack down below 420, get everyone super, super bearish again. And it would be really interesting to see if we got basically a redo of this setup into late September and early October, where we did break down below a prior level of a low, and then it created an inverse head and shoulders into a new all-time high. And sentiment this entire time was super, super, super bearish. Right now, sentiment isn't as extreme, in my opinion, as it needs to be. There's still people that are like, a lot of money is sidelined. What we need is more people to have a convincing short bias, and we need to have people actually buying puts and going short. Instead, right now, people are having money sidelined, and that's not a good sign. So, and that's not necessarily a major factor or something that can cause the market to reverse. All right, so we need to, in my opinion, we need to see some more extremes before the market reverses back up. So right now, those are the levels to the downside and the upside. There's that for the SPY. Let's take a look at the IWM. All right, the IWM, very, very similar. Looks very, very bearish. The same concept here. The RSI is showing tons more room to the downside. We had 2 huge major red days, yet the RSI is barely falling. All right, that's very, very bearish. Number 2, the MACD just crossed down below. And usually the first and the second day that it crosses down below are usually bearish, right? And then number 3, we closed down below 200. 200 was a major level of support for the IWM. The next major level of support for the IWM is going to be 198. And then if 198 breaks, then 195.47 is going to be the next level. But now, for a bullish case, we need to close back above 200. And then we need to close back above 201.50. And then ideally, what we want to see is a close back above this downtrend level. And if we can get that, then that would be very, very bullish for the overall market, in my opinion. Because this entire month, the IWM was showing lots more strength than the SPY and the NASDAQ. So if towards the end of the month, we can get some strength, like some upward strength out of the IWM, that would be pretty bullish for the rest of the market, in my opinion. So there's that for the IWM. Let's go ahead and take a look at the large tech stocks, the 30-year bond, and the NASDAQ. Yep, and for Apple, basically, literally, like, it's very, very similar. The RSI is showing tons more room to the downside. The MACD is also lower, and this MACD level is still not at these lows here. Very similar to what I was showing on the SPY. We're still trading above on the MACD compared to where we were when we were trading higher in the stock, which is very, very bearish. So, if the market continues falling, a major level of support is going to be this 164 level for Apple. One bullish thing though is that the lower level of the Bollinger Band is going higher, which is a good sign. Thank goodness. But yeah, so essentially we need to see a close above 168.34, and then we really want to see a close back above 170.75. So if those two levels can reclaim, then we should be back in business. For Apple, take a look at Microsoft, not so much. So Microsoft is not looking too good. Very similar. RSI literally very, very similar. The MACD also very, very similar. We haven't even broken down below this MACD support, showing more potential rooms to the downside. And we have not started trading outside the lower level of the B band. So it could be a good sign that once Microsoft starts trading heavily outside of the lower level of the B band, Apple and the rest of the market can use that as a signal like, okay, we're very, very overextended to the downside. Now is a good time to start bouncing. So keep Microsoft on watch. Take a look at Google as well. Google showing tons of weakness. RSI, tons of weakness. The MACD, very similar, tons of weakness here. There's still lots more room to the downside potentially. Very, very clearly. I mean, 2600. If 2600 breaks, then we're going back down to 2550, and then we're gonna probably retest these lows. But yeah, it's a bullish sign that the Bollinger Bands are not falling. If the Bollinger Bands were beginning to fall lower, then that would be just very, very bearish. But the fact that the Bollinger Bands are holding, it's a good sign. All right, so let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon does not look as bad in terms of the MACD. The MACD on Amazon is bullish, and the RSI does look bearish, but this is an oversold MACD, which is a good sign. And we held a 20 exponential moving average. So Amazon and Microsoft are looking the most bullish in terms of these stocks. And Tesla doesn't not as cracked down below as I would have liked, but you could also see it's trading very close to the lower level of the B band. And if we can, if Tesla and Microsoft start trading outside of the lower level of the B band on Monday, that would be a very, very good sign that a short-term market bottom could form, and algorithms and everything are going to use that as a reason to start going long again, because these large, basically trillion-dollar companies are very, very overextended to the downside. So Tesla, Microsoft, and Amazon don't look as terrible in terms of technical indicators. All right, so there's that for the large tech stocks. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 30-year bond. All right, so the 30-year bond is showing strength. All right, this is what we needed to see. And what I drew here, I drew this on Thursday, was we needed to see the 30-year bonds MACD, the blue MACD line, to start really becoming overbought. And the reason why I say that is because once the blue MACD line becomes very, very overbought, it will change the trajectory of this yellow MACD line. This, you see how the yellow line is basically falling, right? The only way for the overall momentum of the MACD to start moving upwards is if this blue MACD line starts to really, really overshoot. And once it overshoots, that's going to be a very, very bullish sign in the short term, especially for the large tech stocks. And that's basically what we're seeing here. This is a really, really good sign and good signal from the bonds. The next level that we need to basically close above on Monday, essentially, we need to see some strength above 153.07 on the bonds. And if we can see that, that'd be spectacular. And that would basically mean that the overall market is showing strength as well. But again, none of this has really mattered. If, you know, we find some... Sorry. If we get some bearish news out of Ukraine and Russia. So just keep that in mind. But right now, the bonds are starting to look bullish. Microsoft, Tesla, and the other stock that I was talking about are not looking as Amazon. Microsoft, Tesla, and Amazon aren't looking as garbage. So that is a good sign. That could mean that potentially after maybe Monday, Tuesday, the market could start bouncing. So just keep that in mind. There's that for the overall large tech stocks and the bonds. Let's go ahead and take a look at the NASDAQ. All right, we're at the very important zone for the NASDAQ. We can see the QQQ. I drew out these three very important support levels, and we came back and tested this level basically perfectly. So we had a low of 339.14. This level was 339.33. So we were 15 cents off. And this literally this whole zone between 341 to 338 is a very, very important zone for the NASDAQ. And we can see that the NASDAQ is much more overextended to the downside compared to the SPY and also compared to the IWM, obviously. The IWM is showing much more strength. The SPY still has... The SPY, not as much strength as the IWM, but the NASDAQ is basically already at the lows that we were trading at the end of January. So the NASDAQ is clearly showing the most weakness. And that is a good sign because usually the NASDAQ has the top performing stocks. So if the top performing stocks are doing the worst, that is a potentially good buying opportunity for banks and hedge funds. So when the IWM doesn't do that well, it's the Russell 2000. Banks and hedge funds don't really care as much, so they allow the price to fall lower and lower and lower. But when the NASDAQ is doing as terribly as it is, and it's underperforming compared to the SPY and the Russell, that is a good opportunity to buy dips, in my opinion. So, not just yet. Obviously, we need to wait for the, the conflict to subside, but that is the thought process. The fact that the NASDAQ is the weakest out of the three main indices is a very, very good, good sign. So, we could also see it's trading very close to the lower level of the Bollinger Band, which is another really, really good sign. So if we break down below 338.22, this prior low here at 334.15 is going to be the next level of support. And then, obviously 333 and then 330 and all these other levels below us. And very similar, the RSI is showing lots of weakness. The MACD is showing potentially lots of weakness as well. Very similar to the other stocks that I was basically showing. All of them look exactly the same, essentially. And for the bullish case, very simply, we need to close back above 347.38 and then back up here above 350.50. So if we can close back above these two levels, that'd be great. And then, of course, if we can reclaim this lower level of the bull flag, that would be the most ideal situation. But for now, all of the indicators are pointing lower on the stock market, right? And again, it all depends on the conflict. But the most interesting thing right now is that there is some sort of strength brewing out of Bitcoin. So I want to take a look at that with you guys right now. All right, so Bitcoin, in my opinion, is starting to look very, 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 very bullish. The reason for that is because if you take a look at the MACD right here, the MACD is sharply falling here. You can see it's sharply falling, yet the price of Bitcoin has barely moved. So if you take a look at this blue MACD number, on Friday, it was negative 1147. Today, currently, it's negative 2017. So we've fallen essentially 1,000 points in the MACD, yet the price does not want to fall at the same extremity that the MACD is falling. And that is a potentially really, really bullish sign. We already broke down below this MACD level here that was basically forming as support. We cracked down below it. And now you can clearly see there's still lots of potential room to the downside until we, break and retest this support here. But the fact that there is this strength coming out of the stock price compared to the weakness in the MACD is very, very interesting. So what I'm basically thinking that could happen here is, so this strength is kind of scary because if this holds, then we can come back and retest 42,000. But now if it doesn't hold, that's still very, very bullish, the fact that this was happening today, because the entire day we didn't break down below 39,600. So let me just clean this chart up. So we did not break down below and retest yesterday's lows at all. We were literally in this little portion here. What was this? Less than $1,000. Less than $1,000 intraday. And there's 2 hours left. So this is really, really good. And in my opinion, even if we were to break down below 39.6 and retest this trend line here, that would be ridiculously bullish. And I think any of the, like right now, Bitcoin is showing tons of strength. So when Bitcoin is showing tons of strength like this, also one more thing, I want to show the 4-hour chart. This is the only thing that is a bit bearish, but at the same time, it's not even really bearish. So what we need to see on the 4-hour chart is we need to see the yellow MACD line to start really moving upwards. And for that to happen, we need this blue MACD line to start sharply climbing and to really be overbought for a long time. And that's right now, that's what's happening. So we're holding support. This is climbing upwards. The RSI was basically oversold. Now it's not, still around this level. So the 4-hour chart, it's a bit 50-50 as well. But even if we were to fall down below and come to 38.4, super, super bullish, in my opinion. And I mean, technically Bitcoin looks very, very bullish. So I mean, if Bitcoin starts doing really, really well, the rest of the stock market is going to follow suit. And the MACDs are just really, really looking very, very bullish. You can see on the 3-hour chart, the yellow MACD line is increasing. Look at the 2-hour chart. The yellow MACD line is already moving upwards, but we're creating some sort of like bullish divergence. Same thing on the 1-hour chart. So really, this is a really crazy bullish setup, and this is like really, really crazy in my opinion. If we can, I think we bounce hard intraday tomorrow. But then the main thing is going to be if we can sustain this strength into Monday 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. None of this strength matters. If we see some strength tomorrow, blah blah blah, makes no difference. The only time that it makes a difference is, you know, Monday when the market's open. But right now, it's a really, really good sign that 39,600 is holding. And even if we do fall back down to 38.4, that'd be a really bullish sign, in my opinion. Overall, there was my analysis on the overall markets. Bitcoin just looks really, really interesting at the moment. Yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys Monday. Thank you.